Good morning. Today I'm going to talk about traditional knowledge and its protection. And the topics to be covered in today's uh, agenda is why traditional knowledge, the role and value of the traditional knowledge, potential values, components, threats, features, significance, and protection and evaluation of traditional knowledge. First, what do we mean by a traditional knowledge? It has few features also. Like traditional knowledge refers to the knowledge, innovations and practices of indigenous local communities around the world, and it is developed from experience and it is oral in nature. So this is what is shown over here. See, the traditional knowledge, it will be generated within the communities. Since it is generated within the communities, it will be location and culture specific, and it is based on the decision making and survival strategies. Since it is generated within the communities, it is oral and rural in nature. Since it is oral and rural in nature, it is not systematically documented. And since it is the decision making is based on survival strategies, it concerns critically with issues of life. It is dynamic and based on innovation, adaptation, and experimentation because it is for the survival. Okay, so the traditional knowledge has all these features, and today we are going to see that how this feature helps in making it survival and uh, I mean it is environment friendly and all those things, and however it is under threat and how we are going to protect it. Okay, so now let us go to the next one. What are the components of this traditional knowledge? So you can see the traditional knowledge in various domains. So first thing, if we take in case of a fruits, plants and animals, that we are like the medicinal purposes. So you can use certain fruits will itself heal. Similarly, certain plants and herbs, we have Ayurveda which talks about this. In animal husbandry, we will be using certain herbs even to uh, cure the diseases in animals, and few animals they will be used for either for the craft purpose or for agricultural purpose, and again for even for the plants to grow, we need the help of them. Okay, and we have spiritual healing, traditional fishing methods, traditional birthing methods, bone setting methods, so and folklore, rites and rituals, psychiatry in itself. So there are lots of culture which today we talk about this ADHD and all. So this weren't they not there those days or all these days, but then they were all not considered as a behavioral disease or psychiatric healing to be required, because the social uh, thing nature itself helped them. Okay, the family values and the social behavioral skills were taught just at home itself, so it was not taken up as a separate domain. Here you can see few pictures wherein the one shows the bone setting, traditional bone setting methods and traditional preservation of food, and you have the dry salting methods, and you have the traditional medicines that we are using. Okay, so there is a difference between indigenous knowledge and western knowledge. So a few of them are: the traditional knowledge or indigenous knowledge is qualitative in nature, while the western knowledge, it is based on quantity, intuitive, rational. So now let us take that why it we call it as qualitative, because the traditional knowledge, it gives it is more moral or value centric. So rather than a market based or a value free thing. So that is why we say that indigenous knowledge is qualitative while Western knowledge is quantitative. It is very, very mechanistic in nature. So it will not consider the mind and matter. So now what are the components or how this traditional knowledge is derived? It is based on empirical observation. But there is no experimentation or systemization. Experimentation in the context of like scientifically trying to prove. Rather it is practical oriented. Generated and held by the users themselves while the Western knowledge is generated by specialists. Diachronic. Indigenous knowledge is diachronic, which means that it's a long time series of information on one locality, where Western knowledge is based on synchronic or short time series over a large area. So you can generalize the Western scientific knowledge. That may not be possible with the indigenous knowledge. However, with respect to one locality, it is a long time series, hence it is proven knowledge. So why traditional knowledge is required? Traditional knowledge is required for the sustainable development. So then what is the meaning of sustainable development? It means that use the resources in such a way that the future generation should also have the availability of the resource. Means to say, do not deploy the resources, you use the resource and keep it as a resource to the next generations also. So you need to sustain it. So how we can do this? Here is the traditional manure or traditional organic waste, how it is used. See, you have an animal dung or the crop residue or the domestic food waste. Put together, it becomes an organic waste, which then becomes organic compost that you can use it for the mono or intercropped field. So means that you have an organic compost. So it is a sustainable resource. So you are not using some chemicals of which there is a a depletion of the chemical or the depletion of the nature of the soil itself goes off. We are seeing in recent times, right? So that will not happen. There are a few features of this traditional knowledge. One is that it is based on trainings and experiences, hence it is a pragmatic common sense. It canvasses mutual relationships between people and environment, and hence it is comprehensive. So you cannot detach it from the people who own it, because it is their lifestyle and system. It's a dynamic, cumulative and stable system. So dynamic means as the environment changes, so may it be any calamity, natural calamity, how to protect themselves and how to protect this particular system whatsoever is the the threat. So because the traditional knowledge is dynamic, it's able to sustain it. So it's a way of life. It gives credibility to the local people or the communities. So the traditional knowledge today, it is recognized and valuable as an intellectual property. It is not confined only to those who rely on the traditional knowledge for their living, but it is equally relevant and significant for the industry as well as agriculture. So now let us take some time to talk about this significance. So we have seen till now what are the features of it, but then why today there is a lot of talk about this traditional knowledge is because it is evolving as a valuable intellectual property. So as far as the Indian knowledge system concerned, we are now talking about the food. So actually in Bhagavad Gita, you have a shloka where Krishna tells to Arjuna that there is a strong connection between food and the the state of the mind. So you have the Rajasic food, the Tamasic food, and the Sattvic foods, which will make your mind to be peaceful enough to focus on. So it also says that the food that are overcooked, stale, putrid, polluted and impure are dear to person in the mode of ignorance. And foods that are too bitter, they are all good, or they are all tasteful to the person in the mode of passion. So they will produce pain, grief or disease. So this is how Rajasic and Tamasic foods are classified. And today, this strong connection is scientifically also proved, called as the gut-brain axis, wherein whatever you are eating, it will have straight away, it will just get connected to your brain and will affect the way how like your behavior. So you can have this several talks were there on this gut and brain axis. You can look into all these videos in YouTube. So the contribution in mathematics. So we know Albert Einstein, and he also says that we owe to the Indians who taught us to count. So Laplace, he also talks about the Indian mathematics. So our Indian knowledge system in different domains, it has contributed to the entire world. So here are few of the examples like calculus, geometry, trigonometry. In fact, geometry itself is a word which is derived from geometry. So that means that the measurement of earth. So the solutions of quadratic equations, rules for negative numbers, the basis for calculus, Fibonacci sequences, magic square, use of large numbers. Also music. So the Indian music also, it has contributed with traditional aesthetics, and so even today the Indian music industry is economically it is valuable. So there are some examples of even the other countries who are deriving the benefits from traditional knowledge. Let us Haiti in North America, they have a long tradition of producing vetiver, that is the lavanda beru, an essential oil and prized ingredient for perfumes. Haiti is the world's leading supplier of vetiver for the international perfume trade. Appetite surprising qualities of Hoodia cactus, natural red pigmentation qualities of Uruku plant, and the Body Shop introduction of a line of Ayurvedic inspired products. And you have a widespread use of aloe vera. Ginseng and ginkgo biloba are new staples in people's dietary supplements. And you have few other super or miracle foods. These are all traditional methods of or traditional food or a beautifying thing or so all these things they derive from the traditional knowledge. So now we have seen there are a lot of markets for the traditional foods or traditional medicines or traditional beauty packages, right? So the economic value of Indian traditional knowledge is one of the area where we have to be keen on. So it's often an essential component in developing other products, and they are derived. They will never enter into the modern markets, but they will actually come in another form. So the much of the traditional knowledge has cultural or spiritual value that cannot be quantified by monetary terms. This is somewhere the economic value and the spiritual value that is confronting, and somewhere it gives protection, and somewhere it is giving a threat. So that is what today we are going to analyze upon. There are few more examples of the potential genetic resources and traditional values. You can see the cow urine which has been granted US patent, and you have a bottle ground handicraft. You have Indian musics, which were like showing the number of views and its economic value over here. So the economy, when we go for in terms of money, if we go for the Indian saree, it takes about 2 lakh crores in INR, and Indian sweets and snacks for 1.5 lakhs crores, and Ayurvedic and other Indian traditional medicines, their market is for about 30,000 crores, and it's growing at 20 to 30% per annum. And all these mathematics or musics, they also are influencing the market. So here is a set of Indian sari draping, and the market value of the saris themselves, the Mithai map, and how the Indian music and Ayurveda contributes to the economy, and few more sweets. Okay. Now, what are the problems? So we have seen till now that there is a significance. So we know that the traditional knowledge, it is area centric or societal centric, and so it has not reached far places, and it is oral in nature, so there is no documentation. So now what are the problems confronting to the traditional knowledge holders? So were they able to protect it? Were they able to follow it up or making it sustainable? Yes, we know that the traditional knowledge is sustainable, but are we keeping the traditional knowledge, that knowledge itself, a sustainable one, or is there any problem in following it? Yes. The first problem is the lack of respect and appreciation for traditional knowledge. Second thing is encroachment of modern lifestyles. A younger generation is reluctant to learn old ways of which results in the decline of following the traditional knowledge practices. Inadequate documentation and preservation of knowledge is held only by the elders, and it is not communicating, or it is not communicated to the next generation very easily. So with the elder, the knowledge itself vanishes. The ignorance of the invaluable contribution of local knowledge, example, the traditional agricultural system, so the use of plants conservation strategies. So all these things are examples of this the problems, ignorance, which causes a threat to the traditional knowledge holders. And of all these things, one of the biggest problem is the unauthorized commercial exploitation of the traditional knowledge. So, a few of them is the population rise, clearing of forests, neglection of practices, lifestyles. So, there is a need to develop protection for this traditional knowledge. So, how we are going to protect it, and what are the Indian government's practices to protect it, we will see it in the next video.